Hello, my name is Gaia Vince and I am the author of Transcendence: How Humans Evolved Through Fire, Language, Beauty and Time. It's really the story of how we made ourselves and what makes us special. And that to me is the most interesting question. Why are we not like all the other animals? Because if you believe, as I do, that we evolved biologically, how come the chimps aren't dominating the planet? So this is something I wanted to investigate, and really Transcendence is the story of our particular evolution. Stories about how different environments produce different types of language, about how beauty drove us to explore the world, how different types of agriculture produced patriarchal societies. And these stories of us are really the reason we are who we are now, and they're the clue to how we might solve some of the biggest problems that we're facing right now. Science communication and written science communication has never been more vital. I started becoming interested in this whole subject when I was researching my first book about the Anthropocene, about how humans have changed the planet. This is obviously a huge topic, and the only way to address this big topic and to build an argument cumulatively is through a book, I think. It's such a fascinating story. It's so complex, and it's how we drove our own evolution. We really made ourselves, and now that we have made ourselves, where are we going?
I'm Linda Scott, and my book is called The XX Economy: The Epic Potential of Empowering Women. The phrase XX economy describes the global economy of women and the particular pattern of inequality that exists in every nation between genders around the world. Is there some biological or natural basis for it? And of course, people who have wanted to justify male supremacy have always manipulated science to try to shore up their position. So it was important for me to look deeply into every question, every claim that had been made, whether it's that there's some evolutionary advantage to male domination or whether women have differently wired brains. What I found when I did all this research is that the most up-to-date science tells us a very different and much more subtle and humane story. It's important to get these subtleties of the newest science out to the public because these antiquated beliefs are harmful, and that's why I wrote this book. Science writing is really important. It's important to be accessible, and it's important to be up to date. It's also really important to address misinformation. We're at a point now where negative takes on scientific discoveries can float around the internet with horrible impact if they're not countered with truth and with up-to-date findings. Science writing helps people to understand better the world that they're in and the people that they're with.
Hi, I'm Bill Bryson, and my book is The Body, a Guide for Occupants. Now, my idea with the book is that it has long seemed to me that we spend our entire existences inside this package of tissue, that we occupy this space that we call the body. And yet most of us, I think, have only the sketchiest of ideas of how we're put together and what goes on inside us. So the idea of the book was simply to try to understand this marvelous and miraculous contraption that is us. Well, one way of looking at it, I think, is that each of us is a universe of 37.2 trillion cells, give or take. And these 37 trillion or so cells work in perfect concert most of the time, to give us form and shape, and to allow us to enjoy the rare and supremely agreeable condition known as life. Now, to me, that is an absolute miracle, and certainly worthy of a book. Why is science writing important? I think because science is important. Science is the most vital of all human endeavors, I think. It answers all our questions. It tells us who we are and where we come from, where we're going, what we have to do if we want to get to where we want to go. If we're going to have a world worth living in 50 or 100 years from now, it'll be science that gets us there. So I think the importance of science writing is to capture the wonder and importance and vitality of science and convey that to the general public.
I I'm Dr. Camilla Pang, and my book is called Explaining Humans: What Science Can Teach Us About Life, Love and Relationships. My book is basically written from an autistic point of view because I have autism and I find humans very confusing. I mean, like, to the point where I don't understand these social nuances that everything is built upon. And so to survive and to get through, I used something that was very concrete to me, which was science. I wrote this to survive, basically. I wrote it as a necessity. I didn't actually realise I was writing a book. I kind of scribbled in books. I wrote notes and post-it notes, and they were everywhere. They were my map of the world and my lens through which I communicated. And so this book was a culmination of all the different notes that I'd taken, and with the different chapters, each underpinning a scientific principle, they are my attempt to both question, challenge the norms that we all assume as humans. And one of the main things that I've noticed being autistic is that I don't have any preconceptions or assumptions, and so I've had to make them from the ground up, and this is my attempt to do that. So I'm really happy. It's my first baby, but there's much like all things in life, when you feel like they've finished, it just reminds you that there's so much more evolution that can be done. And I like that, because you invest yourself into something that you love and you create, but then there's always room for more. You will never be finished with a book. You will never be finished with an artwork, and I'm never going to be finished getting to know people, and I probably wouldn't want it any other way.
My name is Susana Kahalen. I'm the author of The Great Pretender, the undercover mission that changed our understanding of madness. The Great Pretender started as an exploration and later became an investigation of a famous 1973 study published in Science called On Being Sane in Insane Places. The study, published by Stanford professor David Rosenhan, involved 8 participants volunteering to go undercover in psychiatric hospitals across the country. The outcome and conclusions of the study scandalized the field of psychiatry and raised serious questions about the state of diagnosis. The opening line of that famous paper went, "If sanity and insanity exist, how shall we know them?" That question reverberated in my bones because it is essentially the question, what is mental illness? It resonated with me deeply, as I was once misdiagnosed with a serious mental illness. When I started to really dig into the study and more questions emerged, I started to come to the conclusion that a study I once lionized had serious flaws. So the obvious choice for me was to write a book about it. I particularly loved going through the archives and learning so much about the history of psychiatry. What science writing does is humanize the discipline by showing the limits and the potentials. I truly hope readers have the same experience that I did writing it. I hope that they feel the enthusiasm and the rush of excitement of the new discoveries. And I hope readers walk away with a brighter view of the future ahead.
My name is Omar Khalidi, and the title of my book is The World According to Physics. This is my love affair with the subject that I have spent my life working on and thinking about. It's my ode to physics. It's a compact, small, popular science book. I don't cover the whole of the history of physics in it, but I try and explain where our current understanding is. What's the cutting edge of what we know about the nature of the universe, the nature of space and time? What are atoms made of? Where did we come from? And where are those mysteries that we have yet to understand? Things like dark matter and dark energy, whether there was something before the Big Bang. I wanted to get it across in as simple and compact a form as possible. One thing I mentioned in the book is that about 40 years ago, Stephen Hawking wrote a famous article in which he said the end of physics is approaching, that we're almost going to understand everything about the nature of space and time and matter and energy. And actually it turns out he was wrong. And this book, I think, in a way celebrates the fact that there are still mysteries out there. There are still things we don't understand. I think I was motivated to write this book because I really wanted to get across my passion for the subject that I have been obsessed about for the last 45 years. This is my way of explaining the universe I've struggled to understand all my life, but in a way that I hope everyone can follow.